Hello, everyone. Kerri, can you hear me well?
I can, yeah.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the No Fear Job Search webinar series. My name is Linda, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Jobscan. If you're not familiar with us, we're a Seattle-based company dedicated to making the best online tools for job seekers. And we sort of put this No Fear Job Search webinar series together in response to all of the strangeness and the stress in the world and the job market right now. And our goal with this series is simply to get as many job seekers as we can in front of the people and the tools that can help them right now. And today's webinar is the 5th of 15 in the No Fear Job Search webinar series. We hope to see you at some of our other sessions in the future as well, and you can check all of those out at jobscan.co/no-fear. And before I hand it off to Kerri, I'd like to go over some rules of the road. So to ensure that everyone has a good experience free of any distractions, you'll notice that we're keeping everyone on mute for the duration of the presentation. But with that being said, we'd still like to engage with you. So there is a text chat feature in Zoom where you can submit your questions or comments to our presenter throughout the webinar. And I know that Kerri also has a few things planned for everyone as well. But myself and our other moderator, John Shields, will be moderating the chat and saving relevant questions for Kerri until the end of our presentation. And we do ask that you try to keep your questions to a general nature, and we'll do our best to relay them to Kerri. And with that, I am delighted to turn it over to today's presenter, Kerri Twigg. We've known Kerri for a while now, and she was most recently featured in our top job search experts to follow on LinkedIn for 2020. Welcome, Kerri. We're happy to have you.
Hey there, I am so happy to be here. I'm just going to take a moment to share my screen. Awesome. Okay, cool. So thank you so much for having me here, and thanks for all the people who have showed up. It's a really weird one to be doing a presentation on because, there's so many people just getting laid off. And so I'm going to talk about what you can do to deal with being laid off. We're going to do a lot of stuff about, emotions and feelings, and then some more practical things that you can do on the job search side. But the first thing I'd like to say is just if you are one of those people who have experienced job loss, like I really feel for you. And most of my career, the last 7 years of my career, has been spent just meeting people when they have experienced job loss. So usually if you were to lose your job, the manager would call me in and say, well, they would let me know when it was happening. I'd usually be in the room next door. The person would be notified about job loss. And then usually how I meet people is I enter the room after they just heard about job loss. And the first thing I say is, good to meet you. Sorry about the circumstances. And then I help people process the feelings right there. If you're someone who has experienced, you've gotten laid off, you've experienced job loss, and it was done to you over the phone or through Zoom, and you didn't have a person to look you in the eye and say, I'm sorry, and how are you feeling about this? I'm so sorry that you didn't get to do that. And it's hard anytime, and I think it's especially hard right now. And I just want to start with, I feel you, and let's see how we can try to deal with this stuff in the most positive way. So today we're going to cover a little bit of the career transition model of change. You've probably seen this everywhere, so I won't spend, too long on that. We'll talk about some of the first things to do, Then we'll talk about how we can find some of your career stories so we can deal with these are the feelings that you'll have, but also we can think about how you might be able to, yeah, find those career stories and have some kind of grounding so you don't feel as lost or up in the air. We'll move into the 10 possible selves, and then we'll do a little bit of Q&A, so lots of time for questions. So we'll just dig into it. So you'll see on here, oh, and I'm not showing, I can't see me. So hold on, I'm just going to change it so, can you, yeah, there I am. Okay, I'm gonna draw, so I wanna make sure that we can we can see me. So if you've heard about the career transition model of change, you'll see this dip. So that's how I should do it with a Sharpie, hold on. And you'll see this everywhere. It comes from a guy, William Bridges, who talks about change, but usually it looks like this. And what we'll do is that we'll talk about the change happening here. And this is kind of where you got laid off. And then this is like the neutral zone. And then this is the start of the new job. And when you experience a loss, you're going to feel a whole bunch of feelings that are in here. And usually these feelings are like negative feelings, and then these ones are more positive feelings. In there, you're going to feel like all sorts of things. So mainly, just going to change my view here. Mainly the things that when I would meet people experience job loss, and I got laid off myself, so know the feeling, but it's really normal to feel sad, right? Because you've just experienced a loss or a shock, and it's more than just the job title and the income. It can be the sense of identity, it can be your regular schedule, it can be community. So a lot of people feel sad. Some people feel glad, which can be weird, but if you had a job that you didn't love, some people do feel a little bit of happiness about it and maybe a relief. So that's normal too. And some people feel bad about feeling happy when other people are sad. And you feel what you feel. So there's nothing wrong with that. Some people feel really mad, really angry. So why me? Why now? Why not this other person? I almost took this job. I didn't. I stayed. This happened. Like lots of feelings of anger right now. And then a lot of people feeling scared. So scared about what will my next job be? Who am I? How do I even find work? So those are, if you're feeling any of those, it's super common to feel those things. And sometimes if you're feeling them like over and over and over again, that's really normal too. So you might feel happy and then you might feel sad. And everyone goes through all of those feelings. The difference is really the speed of it. And it shouldn't really be, it's not really a speed race, but everyone goes through it. And your work is to understand that something has ended. So to accept that something has ended, and then accept that you are in the neutral zone. And the neutral zone as a human is like the absolutely hardest place to be, because if you knew that like the job ended and you knew what this was and when it was going to happen and what you got paid and what it looked like, this would be easy. But the neutral is completely unknown. And we can decide how we're going to be in the neutral zone. So the first things to do after you have been laid off is these 4 things. And I have some external things, some external actions to take, and then some internal, so some things that we can do with ourselves to take. The first one is you have to find your people. And by that, I mean find the people that are going to support you through this, the people who you can talk to, who you can run ideas by. And it's not always going to be, if you have, a spouse or a partner, it's not always going to be them, because if you are, especially if you're doing social distancing with them, they may not want to hear this. I know when I was in job search, I would get so excited about a job, and then I'd talk to my husband about, the application, and then I would get excited about this other, like, he didn't want to always hear about it. So finding people apart from your spouse is always a good idea, but find the people that you can talk to. And that might be through LinkedIn, that might be through your network, it might be family or friends, but you need a person to talk to. Because being in this neutral zone, plus dealing with all the things that you have to do in terms of job search and figure out the next stuff, it's tough. And to try and do it alone is very brave, but it's not really that helpful. So the first thing to do is just think about the people that you could reach out to, people you can connect to, that you can talk to. And maybe it's finding professionals, especially if you're feeling like you might self-harm, if you're feeling like you want to turn to things that are hurting you, then you want to find people that are going to help you with that. Okay, so first thing is just like find your people. And don't worry, I start off really soft with my advice, and then we'll get really practical. If you don't take care of you and build your support systems in the front end of it, it gets extra harder later. So find your people. Number 2, figure out your finances, which means you basically want to look at and figure out 2 main dates. One is your want to work date, which is when you want to actually have a new job, if that's what you're looking to do next. But you really want to figure out when you want to work. And then the second date you need to figure out is your need to work date. For some people, it's the same date. So for some people, they go, I was living paycheck to paycheck before this. Now I need to find work now. And you're gonna, because there's serious consequences if you don't start to bring in money now. So that could work for you. For some people, they're gonna have I'd really like to work now because it gives me a sense of identity and I really love working. And for some other people, but their need to work, so the day they start worrying about their mortgages or their cars or dipping into savings is maybe 6 months from now. And knowing those 2 dates can help you decide, when you have to start to take action and what kind of action you can take. Somebody who wants to land, who has some savings, who has a good reputation, who's really needed a break, you could, if your need to work date, if you have 6 months or a year until you have to dip into something, you can linger in the figuring out what you want to do next. You can linger in the way that you're networking, right? You can have a slower and softer approach. But if you need to work now, then it means kind of fast tracking, right? And knowing the reality of your situation will help you to know what your next steps are. 3, exercise. I know, right? Everyone says it. So I really encourage everyone, and I don't mean like start running marathons, but I mean doing some yoga, going for a walk if it's allowed and where you live. Maybe it's with a mask on, but doing something, because the stress and the emotions that you have from experience being laid off are in your body. And if you don't release them, then they live in there, right? And they stay in you in like a tight neck, and they stay in clenched muscles, and they affect everything about your body. And a real natural release is just to build in simple exercise. And then the 4th thing to do that's an external is just think of some micro resolutions, so some habits and behaviors that you can start to do now that you can trust and be grounded in. And micro resolutions are really small. I have 2 micro resolutions right now. And they're a little sad, but right now I was noticing that, I don't know why, but I've let laundry get a little out of hand. So I have a micro resolution that I do laundry every Monday and every Wednesday. And it just lets me, it's small, it's doable, it's a little bit of habit, because a lot of the habits that you had in going to work aren't there anymore, and the people that you used to report to aren't there anymore. So creating some micro habits gives you some doable stuff, some actions to take. So yeah, you want to do some micro resolutions to feel more grounded. My other one is I just say I'm going to work out before breakfast 1 day a week. So I'm not saying every Monday I'm going to run, but 1 day a week I do that. And those are just new habits to give me some normalcy. And then once you have that new habit, then you can add another micro resolution. And usually I don't say, like, don't try to do 2 new things at a time, but it's a way to slowly improve without stressing yourself out. So the first things that you want to do internally is these things. You want to name the loss, you want to be super kind to yourself, and you want to feel the feels. So hopefully you have pen and paper with you, but one of the best things to do when you have experience being laid off is just get some paper and a pen or pencil and just start to write down everything that you lost. And it maybe could be a running list, but maybe just take a moment now. What in getting laid off, what else did you lose? And so it might be that sense of identity. It might be a daily commute. It might be income. It might be community. But just start jotting down now everything that you lost. We'll just start a list of what you lost. And it's super normal as you're writing this you might have emotions as you realize like how big the list is, and that's okay. The thing about writing it down and getting it out right now is it's not going to surprise you. So if you can start to see what it is that you have to deal with and maybe what you have to replace, you can start to you can start to think about what micro resolutions or what steps you could take to replace some of those things, and it won't knock you off your feet every time it happens. So it's really normal when you get laid off to feel like people like describe it as like getting hit by a bus, right? So you're like, hit by a bus. And when you get hit by a bus, the first thing that you do if you got hit by a bus isn't like to get like on a bus, right? It's to kind of like stop and wipe yourself off and go, what's broken? Where am I? What do I need to do? So you need to really assess, what's broken. And if you did that, so if you got hit by a bus and then you got right back on the bus and you didn't pay attention to your body, something that can happen is that you're sitting on the bus and all of a sudden you like notice that your knee is bleeding and you're like, oh no, better deal with that. And then you notice you have a broken elbow. Oh no. And it's rather than being surprised and shocked by everything that you see that's totally different and that you've lost, just start to dump it and put it in a place. And then when you have those feelings, they're not going to knock the wind out of your sails again. You're going to have this really safe place to put them onto paper. So name the loss. Some people, when they have this list, there's a couple things. So I've had clients who take this list and then they burn it. They're just and that marks the end, because it's really about to accept the neutral and to see the neutral as a place of opportunity and maybe positivity. You have to really accept that ending. So it's one way of writing it down, of owning it, feeling a little bit of control. And I've had clients like burn it. I had another client, they made like a magical symbol from it. So they took all the words that they wrote and then they crossed out any double letters. So like if you said you lost your income, you lost your identity, all the extra I's and they had one I. until they just came up with a couple of letters. So I'll just make one up. So imagine the letters that you're left with after you cross out all the double letters is like CSTI. Then they've taken those letters and made like a little symbol out of them. So I'll show you. So I made it, that's the C, that's the S, that's the, I don't know where the T is. Oh, there, T and the I. And then you play around with the shapes, where you play around with the shapes of the letters until it sort of feels like, I would say like feels kind of magical. And then I've had clients take that and go for like just a really mad run as a way to release it, right? So it's figuring out what you lost and trying to process it quickly so that it doesn't come back to you and you can move on with what's going to happen next. So another way to do this thing is you could write down what you want to have happen, how you want to feel, what you maybe gained by being laid off, and then creating a symbol, and that's maybe an inspiring symbol that you put everywhere. So that's one way to do it. The second thing, so we want to name the loss, own it, so it doesn't surprise us, and we want to feel the feels. And with feel the feels, I think it's one thing to be like, some people feel really raw after they've been laid off, and some don't. So some feel energized. And so feel how you feel. And if you're on the side where you're seeing it as a positive, there's nothing wrong with you. And if you're somebody who it's made you really sad or made you really angry, there's nothing wrong with you. That's all really normal. But you want to be able to feel those things. And here's why. I had a client and he was like, I don't care. Kerri, I heard you're good at resumes and interview prep, but this feeling stuff, like, I don't want to deal with it. And I was like, the issue is that if you don't process these feelings, is they pop up in places that are going to hurt you in the future. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to. And I was like, fine, we'll skip it. So we didn't talk any feeling stuff, wrote him an awesome resume. He got an interview, really excited, went to the interview. He said he went to the interview and he did the tell me about yourself, felt really great, answered a couple questions. And then he got asked a question that he hadn't planned on answering. And he said, Kerri, that feeling when they asked me that question and I didn't know the answer, that feeling was like when I got notified. It was the same feeling of not being in control, of not knowing what to do next. And he's like, and I froze. And he froze and he said all these emotions came up because he didn't feel the feels. So all these emotions came up for him. And then he left, like he just left the interview and felt like he was having a panic attack. And what I want for you is that when you get into the job search stuff, like job search can be exciting because you get to celebrate you're awesome and tell stories and figure out and go for opportunities and have conversations with people about incredible opportunities. But it's also full of self-questioning, and it's also full of often rejection and waiting. So if you're going into that situation without even working on this, I think it's going to make the process even more painful and even more suffering. And I don't mean you're going to feel the feels and spend weeks doing this, but maybe one of your micro resolutions is to spend 5 minutes with your feelings and, maybe not reacting to them so huge. So I'm going to teach you one little exercise on how to feel the feels. So if you're sitting in a chair, cool, you're just going to take your feet and put them flat on the ground. And if you're sitting, if you're on a couch or if you're sitting on the floor, then you might either come and bring your feet flat forward, or you want to come into a cross-legged position on the floor. And we're just going to start by lengthening your spine. Relax your shoulders. Relax your jaw. And just notice where your attention is right now. And close your eyes if it's comfortable for you. But where is your attention right now? So is your attention in your body? Sounds around you? Are you making plans? Now, see if you can take your attention and just bring it to where your body touches the ground. So that might just be feeling your feet flat on the ground. If you're cross-legged, it might be where your feet and your buttocks and maybe the back of your thighs are touching the ground. But just notice where your body makes contact with the ground. And if you get distracted by thoughts or feelings or plans, just bring it back and go, I'm just paying attention to where my body touches the ground. So now from this place of being grounded and steady, can you bring your attention to any emotions you might feel? So usually I kind of imagine myself kind of exploring, inside me and just going, am I feeling any feelings right now? And if I am, I'm not going to judge them or try to stop them. I'm just going to notice them. And if I feel one, I'm just going to label it feel, which means you notice it. And then you just say feel, either out loud or in your head. And keep your attention on that emotion. And if you have no emotions right now, then you can just label that rest, which just means you're feeling really restful. Nothing's coming up for you. And starting to see the emotion not as something that you need to hide or react to or fix or stop. It's like a parade, right? You see a parade go by and you point and go, oh, there's the float with flowers on it. You're just going, oh, you're just pointing at your emotion. Oh, look, that's a little bit of guilt. Or that's a little bit of envy. That's a little bit of anger. And just notice that it's there. So let's slowly come back, open our eyes. So that's one really quick method of just noticing a feeling, of not trying to squish it or squash it or make anything else out of it, but just feeling the feels. The more often that you can just notice like where you are, kind of the better. So feel the feels. After the feel feels, the other actions you want to take is start to be kind to yourself. So you can be kind to yourself by that meditation. That one's pretty easy, right? Just ground yourself, feel supported, tune in to see if you're feeling any feelings, right? Taking care of yourself, whatever self-care works for you. So self-care might just be you put yourself to bed at a decent time. You journal before you pick up and look at jobs on LinkedIn. You decide there's 1 or 2 days a week that you're going to look at job ads, and the other days you stay away from it. But how are you going to take care of yourself? So it's not just like candles and self massages, but what are the little things that help you feel pampered and help you show love to yourself? And then another way that we can be really kind to ourselves is that we can give ourselves credit for what we've actually accomplished in our career. And so instead of moving from a place of, I haven't accomplished anything, or like I suck and I'm never going to land a job, actually a way of being kind to yourself is looking at what you have accomplished and where that's useful moving forward. And you do that by finding your career stories. And here's how you find your career stories. You can try and do it with me right now if you want. And if you have questions about it, we can talk about it in the end. But to find your stories, so to figure out what actually makes you awesome and will help you in all your way forward, is this simple exercise. So the first one is just, again, find that quiet spot. So what we just did, that grounding, right? So we get grounded, we get into a place, and again, does not need to be like 20 minutes, can be like 30 seconds, right? Okay, I feel my feet on the floor, taking a breath, and then ask yourself, when was a day that I left work and I felt really proud of what I did? What was the day I left work and I made a difference? When did work not feel like work? And just take a moment to imagine it and then write it down. And ideally, don't leave your house to go do this, but if you have index cards, just grab an index card and write out that story on the front. And then tomorrow, do the same thing, right? Tomorrow go, oh, what am I the most proud of doing in my career? And then think of a specific example and then write it out. And do this for 7 days. And yeah, you can still network and you can still, feel the feels and cope with the loss and talk with people. But alongside that work, just start getting some clarity about what you have to offer. Because leading with, I need a job and I've always been this, is not enough to help people understand your value or help people understand where you're going to be useful next. Knowing what you're awesome at will. So you can do this work underneath everything else. And it's really like 5 minutes of calm down, get a vision of a memory, and then come down and write down the card. So do this for 7 days. After 7 days, after you have these 7 cards, look at your cards and just go, what skill did I use in that story? So I'll share a story with you, and then what skills I think it used. So I did this exercise and the story came up about one of my very favorite days at work. And it had come years before, right? So your career story, it doesn't have to be in the last, month or year. It could be from 20 years ago. It's fine. So my story was, I was working as a community programs manager, and I showed up one day and these kids were outside with a dog, and they said, Kerri, we have this dog, and we're not going to come to art class today because we have this dog and it's going to get hit by a car. And I said, well, bring it in. And they told me that no dogs were allowed in the art center. So I went inside the community center, I found the executive director at a board meeting, knocked on the door, and then I got permission to bring the dog inside because the dog was pretty tame. So we brought the dog inside, all the children drew portraits of the dog, and then I took all those portraits of the dog, the kids, I made a leash out of a skipping rope, and the children and I and this dog went around the community and we hung up all these lost dog posters. Eventually we found a place, someone who took the dog in, and and we built trust. So in that story, which may not be a great resume story, but in that story I can identify some key skills. So I can identify that enjoyed solving a problem. I identified, adapting a program, being creative, meeting people where they're at, advocating for my clients. So all of those are skills that I used in that one story. So in my index card, I have my dog story on one side, and then on the other side, I'm going to write down all the skills that I used in that story. And you want to do that for all of the skills that all of the stories that you wrote. Identify what skills. And then when you're done, then see if what skills get mentioned over and over again. So some people, I just do it old school and I do it visual. I just go, oh, look, I have 7 stories. In 6 of them, it's about problem solving. I probably can lead my career brand with problem solving. And it also says I'm good with working in the muck. Well, I guess I could, put that as a lead. So what happens is that you can start to figure out what your common skills are, and you can choose, 3 of them that become your career brand. And it's a way of being kind to yourself, because you're starting to look and accept, like, in this neutral zone, hey, I'm in this neutral zone, but just because I don't have a job doesn't mean that I'm not awesome. And it doesn't mean that I don't have these skills. And so you've dealt with the end, and in the neutral, you're just embracing your incredibleness, and you're grounding it in reality and things that you accomplished. Even if your manager didn't give you credit, even if no one else gave you credit for it, you can still be proud. You bring that wherever you go. So this method works. Some people will take the skill words, and they'll put it into like a word cloud, and that helps them know. But if you do this, see how kind this is to yourself. So you're like doing this work, you're basing your brand not on like, some other weird words, but based on your own experience. Then what you'll be able to figure out is you'll go, hey, I'm really super at boom, boom, boom. I'm really super at name skill 1, skill 2, skill 3. And with this, you can start to write like the top of your resume, where it talks about those super skills, on the top of like your LinkedIn profile. When someone asks you, hey, I heard you lost your job, and you go, yeah. And they say, what are you thinking about next? You could say, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I do know that I love to use this skill, and this skill. And at least you sound better than, I don't know what I want to do next. And, I got laid off, and I don't even know what I'm good at. A gift to yourself is doing the work to figure that out. Once you figure that out, if you actually want to move forward with, hey, what am I going to do next? Is try this activity called the 10 possible selves. And you're really answering the question, like, what could be possible now? So I've dealt with my feelings. I've accepted the situation. I know what I'm really awesome at. What could I do next? And I'm like, write down 10 possibilities of what you could be now. I want to tell you a short story, because I'm going to do questions soon. But I was working with a client, and she felt like completely stuck. So she was a client that actually worked in cannabis. She worked in cannabis in cities in the States where it was legal, but she was from Australia. So she had gone back to Australia and was planning to go back to the States, and then COVID-19 happened. So now she's stuck in Australia, where it's not legal, and the place that's going to pay her is in another country, and she can't get there, and she doesn't know for how long she won't be able to get there. So I was like, okay, we have to look at the other possibilities, because working in that shop in Portland isn't a possibility right now. So then we wrote a list of 10 possible things that she could be. And they were based on her skills. So you just read, 10 possible things, and it might be job titles. It might be things you've always dreamt of being. It might be the same job that you had before, but maybe you show up a little bit differently. And just create that list and writing it down. Like, give yourself permission, please, to dream, and give yourself permission to, write out your ideas, and then look at your list. And then depending on your need to work dates and your want to work dates, you'll choose a different criteria for exploring those. So you might choose to test out one of them that is, you might choose to test out the one that is like the most likely to land because you need money now. Or you might choose to test one out that is the most exciting to you, or the scariest to you, or the biggest dream to you. So you select your criteria and then go out and test it out. And testing might be starting a project. It might be having conversations with people in that sector. It might be like trying to find a term position. It might be starting a podcast on that topic. But what you can do, because you've figured out what you're super at, is that you can go, hey, I'm really good at this, this, and this. And then I'm going to go and explore this. So you can even contact people. I have a client, she has always been an executive assistant, but doesn't love it. She did this, and a thing that popped up was a business analyst. So now she's reaching out to other business analysts and getting some information about it, but she knows what she brings, and then she's communicating from that way. This is a better method than just reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm laid off. I don't know what I want to do next. Have you heard of anything? The way of knowing your super skills and then exploring things that actually interest you, you have a higher chance of actually getting a job because you're being strategic and intentional about it instead of being reactive and accepting anything that comes. In this environment, I know that people need jobs, and I know that some jobs are hard to come by. But if you go and take a job that doesn't use your true skills and that doesn't make you happy, the chances are you are not going to thrive in that job, and you're going to be back right here. And I know that that's harsh, but that is often what happens when you can take a little bit of time, not a huge amount of time, and just figure out, hey, what is something that I'm good at? What could I lead with, and what do I want to do next? And be more intentional about making that happen. You're going to be in good hands. And you're in the right place, right? Coming to this workshop, huge. This is like huge steps, right? You stayed with me for nearly an hour. Amazing. Go to the other workshops. They've got information, free information by amazing career experts. Jobscan has done an incredible job. So you can figure out how to take these stories and these skills and put those in your resume and weave them into your LinkedIn and tell them in your interview so that you have something steady to stand on in all of this chaos, because all we can control is what we've done and accomplished before and dream about what we want to do next. So that is really all I have to share with you. Really want to say it's okay to be awesome also. If you have worked in the same job in a long time, like for a long time, sometimes you're not used to selling yourself or talking about what makes you incredible. And you're not talking about how you're incredible in a way that, hey, I'm better than everyone else. All you're talking about is, this is how I help. This is how I help companies, and this is how I help people to meet their goals. And if you know that about yourself, you're gonna be just so incredible, and just own that. If you don't share you're awesome with people, they don't know, or they'll guess, and they might guess wrong. And we don't want that to happen, right? We want you landing in a timing that works for you, in a way where you feel supported as you're going for stuff, and that whatever you land is still something that you find enjoyable. And it might not be dream job enjoyable right now, but it should at least use one of your favorite skills so that it doesn't completely drain you. And when things get better, And when things are more opened up and there's a vaccine and we're allowed to go outside, then from that, maybe you have gained a job that gets you some experience in something that you want to leap to elsewhere. So thanks for watching. And now I'm ready for any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Kerri. I'm seeing a lot of positive comments in the chat. And I think people are very appreciative of what you've shared today.
Good.
We have a couple of questions about what people's career stories should be about, or not knowing how to come up with a new story every day. Do you have any strategies or tips?
Yeah. So so you can sit, the other way that you can do it is think about, like, if you know what kind of job that you want, you can look at that job ad. And even if they use Jobscan, I'm sure all the hard skills and soft skills could come out. And if they take those words and then go say, like, tell me about a time you, and name the hard skill, that might be a way of bringing up the prompt. So tell me about a time like you had to use your communication skills to get out a problem, or tell me about a time you helped your team out. So you might use those specific skills. I had a course, it was free last month, but are you sending out a follow-up to people?
Yeah, we can include any resources,
Okay.
and we will also be sharing out the recording of this session.
Yeah, so because I have a class like that that does exactly that, where it gives like a daily prompt for 7 days, and then breaks that up. I just closed registration, but I'll create a link and I'll send it to you. And if you could send that out, that would be great. Okay, I can do that.
Absolutely do that.
Yeah, because it's a big question. Okay, thank you.
And then Matthew asks, does it matter if my most proud work story is my most traumatic one? It just helped me realize who I am at work, even under insane pressure.
Yeah, so sometimes when you're doing the stories method, stories will come up that you never put on your resume and you never tell at an interview, like you don't share them. So some of the stories are just for you to know your skills, and some of the stories will come up will be great for your interview. So if it helps you to see that under pressure you do amazingly well, then you glean the strength from it. We can thank the story. And then, a story you might share might be something that that doesn't bring up trauma for you. So yeah, you're doing it right, even if it's not a shareable story.
Thanks for that question, Matthew.
Yeah.
And Pablo asks, as a very self-demanding person who sees the imperfection in everything, seeing what I am good at is difficult. So how can I pull those stories out without picking myself apart?
Oh, Pablo. So just like you're amazing. And I feel you, because I do that to myself. I think if you could just, the way that when we sat and did the meditation and we sort of we felt the emotion, but we didn't get into it. Can you try to gift yourself with, I'm just going to think about focus on how you felt at work, and then just write out the story, and knowing that when you did it, yeah, maybe you could have done it better, but the stories are there to help you figure out your skills. So that might be a way of just kind of putting blinders on and going, I'm going to allow myself without judging it. The other method would be, if you're very, very practical, is like you creating the stories prompts from job ads. But I think if you could just gift yourself, that you don't judge it too much. And yeah, we could have been better. It can pick apart anything, but just gift yourself accepting to find the skills for it, right? And then where you can use your perfectionist bit is once those stories are done, once you're released, you can analyze, pick apart, be really specific about the parts at that time. But you want to turn off those or put blinders on as you're doing it.
And then Deanna asks, can I expedite the process by writing all my stories in 1 or 2 days rather than over a week? Or is there a process to completing it in 7 days?
Yeah, so the reason I say 7 days, and I'll tell a really quick story. I had a client who finished it in 2 days, and the stories that he gave me were all the stories that he used in his past. So these are the stories he used to get jobs that he didn't love and jobs he kept losing. So if you don't give yourself the time to let unexpected stories come to you, you're just going to be telling the story that you have always been telling. Now, if you have been happy in your career, then that's going to work. If you were unhappy in your career and you want to make a change, just give them the time and test it, because there's going to be depth and some insight in there that could really make the difference between you telling an employer a skill that you didn't even realize you had until you gave yourself the time to do it.
Awesome. And then Linda asks, what if you have skills you wish you could use but haven't been able to use in your career yet? How can I include these in my career story?
Yeah, so can you repeat it? Like, she has the skills, she just hasn't been able to use them?
Yeah, so maybe they're not relevant to her current job or her previous jobs, but it's something she learned.
Yeah, so you can bring those, you can absolutely weave those in. But so the story you have to back it up in an interview might be from a long time ago, but if that's the work that makes you happy, you can absolutely lead with it. So like for example, when I switched from I worked in the arts for, you can tell, I worked in the arts for a long time, and then I transferred to human resources. I had never coached adults. I had never done policy stuff, but I knew that I had those skills. Maybe like because it wasn't really part of my job. But I knew that, adults would ask me about how to teach art to their kids. And so I would casually give them advice on it. So I knew I had the skills. So you want to probably have one that you can back up with recent, and then the other ones, you can just talk about it. And that should work.
And then Bijoy asks, how do I translate the stories into accomplishments on my resume?
Oh, so for every story that you have, figure out the SOAR. So figure out the situation, obstacle, if there is one, action, and result. So in the dog story, the situation was like the kids kids camp. The action that I took was advocating for the children and making the poster. And then the result was that I built trust and the dog found a home. Then on your resume, you just want to figure out what the action word is. You often want to match the action word with what the action the employer is looking for. So if that one, they were looking for someone who could advocate, then I would say like advocated I wouldn't even use this story on my resume, but as an example, would be like advocated that a dog could enter the community space to help build trust with the children. So you just locate the action and the result in the situation and turn it on its head. Yeah.
And then we have a couple of general hiring and job search questions.
Awesome. Yeah.
With you. Mary asks, I'm 58 and it was already tough out there before all of this. Do you think companies would be more likely now to hire seasoned employees?
If they have the right skills. So I think, I know that ageism is a real thing. I think the thing to think about is know what you're really good at, and then look for a company that is looking for what you have to offer. If you're bringing a wealth and a steadiness of experience with you, and you can sell that, that's going to look really great. When we think about what most companies need right now, is they need people who are self-aware. They need people who know what they're awesome at. They need people who are ready to work. And if you're clear about that, that's going to raise your chances. You going in and saying, like, I don't know what I'm good at, I don't know where I help, but I know I need a job, lowers everyone. So I don't know if there's a lean, and just make sure the biggest thing they worry about for ages is often technology. So just making sure that you know all that stuff. And if you don't, take some online courses. But that would be the I feel like the biggest thing right now with ageism. So.
And then Emily asks, how do you start reconnecting with employed people without projecting desperation?
Yeah. So, oh man, I wrote an article. It's called like how to write to people you want to know on LinkedIn that you don't know. And so for that one, like what I do is I think of it as like an ego stroke. And so if you wanted to reach out to someone, like follow their stuff, show interest in what they're doing first, and start that as a starting point rather than like, I'm so-and-so, I'm looking for a job. So see if there's some other kind of entry point. See if there is a job available and it has the skills of mentioning that to them. Like applying for a job directly is usually the worst way to go about it. So in advance, following the companies, liking their stuff, starting casual conversations on the posts that they like, and then following up after that is usually a better way. If there's a job and someone's hiring for it, so a recruiter, then just apply for it.
And as we wrap up here, I think we'll have time for one or two more questions.
Okay.
Stephanie asks, how do you find the right people to reach out to? Some can be more helpful than others.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like paying attention, and then also figuring out what is in it for the other person, right? So if I'm a busy career coach and I seem really approachable, but like, behind the scenes I'm writing a book and like doing a bunch of things, then there needs to be something in it like for me. So I would create a list of people, see where you can make some common connections with them, so there's some commonality, and start there first. And you don't need to talk to people at the top, the decision makers, to begin with. Start with people like unless you are like, a VP level, but start at the level you're at, and then work your way up and asking them, who else should I talk to, is going to get you more ins for it. Yeah, but it's hard because you never, like, I'm not good at replying to LinkedIn messages. So yeah, find out where people check their email too.
Awesome. Well, we're just about up on our time here. And we have I think a couple questions on how and where people can find you. So Kerri, would you recommend them following you on LinkedIn or?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a website, which is career-stories.com. I have a weekly show on Thursdays where, like this Thursday, I'm doing a workshop just about, it's a fun drama activity using 2 objects. And then I also have a membership. Right now it's down to like $10 a month, where I teach the Career Stories method, like how to write a resume using stories, how to interview. So, but that's all like on the website. But LinkedIn is a good place I hang out.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you, Kerri, and thank you everyone for joining us. I think we all really enjoyed your presentation. And that's it for today, but I hope to see some of you at our future webinars this week and next week. And best of luck to everyone in your job searches and navigating these very difficult times.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me, Linda and Jobscan and John.
Bye, everyone.
Online listings make applying for jobs easier than ever. So why aren't you getting a response from employers? Easy applications means more applicants, which means more competition. Leading companies use automated software tools called applicant tracking systems, or ATS, that weed out many resumes before they even reach a real person. So how do you cut through the noise? With Jobscan. Jobscan uses artificial intelligence to get your resume past the filters. We've reverse engineered their systems to create an intelligent tool that provides proprietary insights to optimize your resume at a much deeper level, so you can tailor your resume for each job based on precise keywords and skills most valued by the company. Jobscan can even optimize your LinkedIn profile so company recruiters find you before you even know they're looking for your skill set. Let Jobscan maximize your chances with every application. Register for your free account and run your first scan today.